All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. It's Attorney Kevin. We're back with another episode of the Not an Accident podcast. This is episode 49, which is absolutely mind-blowing, and I had to bring you guys another amazing guest, Mr. David Cudnik in the house. What's
Pleasure.
going on, man?
Not a whole lot today. Just ready to get my workday started. So
There you go.
happy to spend an hour with you this Friday morning.
Well, I appreciate you, man. And I was just, kind of going through, your background and, your experience. And we were kind of talking a little bit before the podcast. But, of course, I saw on LinkedIn, your basically exact role is essentially VP of operations, president and director of expertise and elevating restaurant performance and guest satisfaction for Cali.
Well, yeah, that was my LinkedIn profile because I spent 20 years at one company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then had to polish up the LinkedIn profile.
There you go. I saw that. Yeah.
That was somewhat strategic, but what I do for...
I'm like, this dude's a legend.
Yeah, what I do for CRG, and that wasn't even AI that wrote that. That was me myself. So I'm proud of that. But I work for CRG now. I run the Cali brand, and so I run operations for the brand, and I'm the brand president. So kind of the one-stop shop. I run operations, marketing, conceptual development. So the small brand's my baby, and we're looking for our growth stage here soon.
What I just jump right into these things, and obviously we develop and we'll get a background. Well, first of all, I want to start actually with the background, which I rarely do. But you said this is not your first rodeo, so you've been in the restaurant branding business, growing restaurant groups and stuff like that for quite a while. It sounded like
for about 20 years now. Okay. And so I actually went to school for marketing.
Okay.
And as a lot of marketing grads came out of college with not a ton of job opportunities, probably didn't network myself properly throughout college.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then I had always worked in restaurants since I was 15 years old. And so I started applying for management jobs. And I didn't get a management job initially with the first company that I worked for, but 6 months in, I was promoted and then actually worked myself up from like a store level manager to being the president of that company. And we had 12 locations, multiple states, upscale casual brands. So kind of started my way at the bottom and worked my way to the top, and then was in executive management for about 10 years with that company. And then, wanted to change and landed in Tampa probably about 3 years ago.
Good for you, man. Well, you made the right choice. We were talking about with Tampa and Florida and how incredible the Tampa Bay area is. So I want to, kind of dive into what you said a little bit. So
Sure.
you didn't really start in management when you first started and worked your way up. I mean, talk to the audience about some of the things that, the qualities maybe that you had or the experiences that you had that I think, led to eventually being the head honcho.
Well, yeah, for me, it was, I wanted it really badly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it. And so I wanted to be successful, whatever that meant. And when you're, 21, 22 years old, graduating college, I just wanted to have a salary job and work in an industry that really inspired me and energized me. And I found that in the restaurant business. And, for me, starting at that lower level and working myself up with a great company, a family-owned business, very similar to CRG, not
That's
quite
awesome.
as big. Along the way, there was challenges, like store-level management is very difficult when you start out in the restaurant business, especially 20 years ago. A typical work week would be 55, 60 hours a week. And
Probably on a slow week.
Yeah, on a slow week. And you weren't compensated for your time as much as you would think, right? And then, eventually as you move up to become a store level general manager, then the money starts coming, and then, moved up to be director and then VP and then ultimately the president of the company. So you put in a lot of work, grinding early on in those early years, and then for it to pay off in the long run. So
You got to earn your stripes.
Yeah. For me, the restaurant industry is just, you're around people 24/7. I love being around people. I love being around younger people. That energizes me. And the restaurant industry to me is you're kind of hosting your own party every day. And if you look at it with that mentality,
that's awesome.
Yeah, because
You are.
I mean, we're hosting. Let's say at Cali, we do 500 guests a day in and out of each one of our restaurants. You have an opportunity there to entertain, to give a great experience, to uplift people if you do it the right way. And that's kind of always been one of my missions and my leadership style. And so, it's there's never a dull moment in the business. And again, as you know, so many restaurants come and go.
We're
And
going to
it's
get
an
into that. Yeah.
extremely competitive industry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that helps motivate me as well, because you're only as good as your last shift. You know,
Yeah.
you could have a great restaurant concept for years and years, and guests really only remember their last visit. So it always keeps you on your toes as well.
I was, I remiss with you with that. My business, being an injury attorney and things like that, obviously, we see the billboards and the TV commercials and things like that. So, we do some of that, but no, we don't spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So for that, it's very experiential based for us as well. And I think, that's been a major differentiator among other things, but making sure, I think a lot of people forget about that, how important not only the whole experience is, but that last interaction, because they could have gone to the restaurant 4 times.
Sure.
And then the 5th time, they got, had this issue or that issue. And it's like, I'm not going back. It's like, you just went, what happened?
Yeah, it's funny. I always say, how much equity do you build up in the bank for each guest, right?
That's a good point,
So regulars, when you would say a true restaurant regular, they really only come in every 2 to 3 months. People think that regulars are at restaurants 2-3 times a week. So often you just have that, one chance every couple months to have a positive impact on a guest.
Yeah.
And it's very true. And you see it with guest reviews all the time as well. People are more apt to spread the word about a bad experience than a good experience.
Right.
But the key is creating the great experience. And so how do you go from that good to great experience? The great experience people remember. And often that comes from a relationship with the server or just doing the little extra.
My boy
that's
Richard at
unexpected.
Cali. My boy Richard.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's a great example.
He's awesome.
of that.
He always takes good care of us.
And that's honestly the key. It's I'm a relationship-based type of leader, and for my store level managers, I have genuine relationships with them. I know them personally, not to where you become friends with them,
Of course.
but you know something about them.
There's a church and state. Yeah.
100%. And then that trickles down to the servers. And then the servers can deliver that great, genuine experience to the guests that walk in. And so if you do it from a genuine place, it all works,
Firmly believe that.
But it has
Firmly
to be from
believe
a
that.
genuine place.
Correct.
Because people, can spot a fraud from a mile away,
Now more than ever. I
Yeah.
mean, now more than ever. And I think, obviously with it doesn't affect your business too much probably right now, but with AI and things like that, I mean, I think going into, the next decade, I think people are more skeptical than ever of what's
100%.
real and what's not. I want to, because this is your forte, you touched on it a little bit, and probably one of the big, key questions here is it the chicken before the egg? Meaning, is it the brand or the restaurant?
Oh boy.
How does that analysis kind of come down?
I mean, really, it's both. I've seen a lot of great concepts in theory, right, that have not had proper leadership, that have failed miserably, and then
Okay.
very average concepts that have great people behind it that are super successful. So I think you need to have both to be over the top. And so it's funny with the Cali brand coming in, that was one reason that I was brought into the brand, because there's been this great period of evolution with Cali, from fast casual prior to the pandemic to full service right after the pandemic to what we're calling like premium casual now. And so we've had quite an evolution of the brand. And I think that the way that the brand has evolved and changed.
Let me stop.
Yeah.
So, and when you're talking about premium casual, is that based on price point or what kind of?
It's interesting. It's based off experience.
Okay.
And so, but I think there is
So
always
the
a price
level of
element.
interaction you get from the server and the
Sure.
Okay.
So from casual to premium casual, for instance, like before our restaurants, the interiors were, they were still aesthetically pleasing, but we put a lot of money in to give that upscale feel to
Yes,
it, right?
I saw
Like
the recent renovation.
The
Yeah.
granite tables, now we have actual china. Before we had harder plastic china.
Okay.
So the whole experience from the uniforms that the servers are now in are changed from before. How we present online, from our website to our takeout packaging. So we hired some really great consultants that I've worked with, and they've helped evolve the brand over the last couple of years to be in the place that it is now. And so Cali's been around for a while, for over 20 years. And now, finally, I think we're ready to kind of step out for our growth pattern. So,
which we talked about a little bit with some of the other restaurants you're doing. So that's an interesting, basically, I wouldn't say experience that you've had, but, basically how you're viewing things. It's like you have to have both. You have to have the leadership and you have to have the concept.
For sure.
Because you could have a really good idea that, isn't being ran well, and then you could have a bad idea that it is ran well, but just people aren't vibing with.
100%. I think that like some operators that I've come across in my day, they almost become somewhat arrogant about their concept.
I was going to say like egotistical.
Yeah, so it's almost like
we should do like a NASCAR theme where they grill the food in their car at 200 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah, it just doesn't, it just doesn't work that way, because again, there's so many great concepts that are out there,
Or they do it for themselves rather than their customer.
Oh, 100%. So what place are you coming from? But I think if it comes from a labor of love often and passion, then that's where the success comes as well too. Like, hey, listen, we're in business to make money, but we're also in business to positively affect people's lives, whether it be the employees that work for us or every guest that walks through the door. Like you have an opportunity, in the hospitality industry to change somebody's day with a simple smile. And if you can get all your employees to believe that, right, then that can be special, because it's just not another day at Cali, right? And if you can have that mentality and that can trickle down to the guests, you can create quite an impact.
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're looking at, I guess, the systems of, the customer experience, let's, go with that. Is it kind of an individual basis? And I'll expand on this, the question that I'm trying to ask. Is it kind of an individual basis, or is there kind of a global overlook? And I guess, that kind of depends on the management style. But what I'm saying is like, how do you kind of, do you train globally? Like, okay, we train the front because there's obviously the front, the front, desk basically, the hostess that comes in. Okay, we got to make sure that they're seated promptly, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the server can't be super responsible for that, but they're, in process of serving and things like that. The server can't be telling the chef what to do, or the cooks and things like that, and et cetera. How do you kind of control that conveyor belt model, making sure everybody has ownership while keeping everybody on the same page is probably what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's interesting because I think that you can have some big picture training in philosophies within your company, and that can be your company values. And that applies to every position in the restaurant, essentially, whether it's front of the house, back of the house, everything applies, right? You have a set of values that you hire by, that you coach with, and then terminate with as well if somebody doesn't fit those values.
So general overview and then
specific.
Micro, macro.
Yeah. And then very specific training, right? I would say that the majority of our employees that are in the front of the house know how to do the host job too as well. And so there's a lot of cross-training that goes on in the restaurant industry that's very important for our success, and getting everybody to buy into that team philosophy, right? So it's, what I hate to hear is that's not my job. That is a, you don't fit our culture if that comes out of your mouth.
Susie's calls. It's like,
it's everybody's working towards a greater good, and the mission is for every guest to leave happy. And again, if that requires you as a server, if the host is tied up seating another table and you see guests at the front door, the expectation is that you walk to the front door and you seat that guest. It's just not the hostess's job to wipe down tables and reset them. If a server notices, they do that as well. So it's that team mentality that's really important inside of a restaurant. There's a lot of parallels between sports, which I grew up playing,
of course,
and then business as well, especially in the restaurant industry. So it's getting everybody to buy into that is what the important part is. And that starts in the hiring process.
I think too, for me, and just specific to your business, even what you were saying, seating people, if the hostess is busy or, clearing the tables and things like that, the more tables you have, the more tips you get, the more money you make.
100%.
That's number one. And then kind of, with your story, you never know that hostess 5 years from now, crushes it and ends up managing a hotel or managing
100%.
And I know how communal the hospitality business is.
And that's the beautiful thing about our industry. And, when I kind of look at things, I've seen so many people that I've hired that were 16-year-old hosts that have went on to do amazing things too. It's amazing, how many people that you touch in the restaurant industry. And I think that working in a restaurant teaches you a lot about humility. It can teach you a lot about life in general. So I would always encourage everybody, to work in the restaurant industry just for a period of time. You'll learn a lot.
Well, imagine talking to 100 people a day. or, or
100%.
50, 50 people a day and things like that you're helping in different, walks of life, different beliefs, different, having a different type of day, maybe this happened or that
Oh,
happened, et
yeah.
cetera. I mean, to be able to kind of regulate yourself and deal with so many different personalities is an art in itself.
Yeah, and it's funny because the kitchen staff is typically very different from your front of the house
Oh,
staff.
I'm sure.
Your front of the house staff, it's, there's a lot of people in and out of the restaurant industry, whether they're college students or it's just a stopgap for them to make some part-time money. But, and then the kitchen workers tend to be more long-term, and this tends to be their long-term career objective. And so it's funny how that can mesh very well together, again, if you have the proper culture. So,
Absolutely.
But again, that's one of the challenges of our business as well, is you're training a lot because you have a lot of people in and out of the restaurant business.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so we try to hire, like, if
So
we're
you
hiring,
have to have that team mentality because you never know where somebody maybe
Yes.
to jump in next week.
you have that great core of employees. That's what's important, and they're the ones that tend to stick around for a while. And if you have that great core, the people that are kind of coming in and out, that they're well trained and they understand the culture. When you lose that core, that's when it can be a little bit challenging. So we're always on guard for that.
Transitioning into that, we could obviously, go down a whole rabbit hole with this next question, but we'll kind of narrow down the timeline to, 2026, 2027. What are some of the biggest challenges, and you can either answer it for yourself or the industry in general, that, ultimately a restaurant group is facing?
Well, I think post-pandemic, things change in the restaurant business. A lot of restaurants were the first to close down, and a lot of the talented management in the industry, they left at that time. It was kind of like
Makes sense.
kind of like the final straw for a lot of people. So, and for our business to run the way that we want, we need to have talented management. And so I would say the biggest challenge for our industry is talented management. And so a lot of that, it comes from internal development. And so I think finding people that want to be in this business, because the stereotype was what I spoke of earlier. When 20 years ago, you worked 55, 60 hours a week because that's just how it was, and you were underpaid. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people heard stories of that over the years, and they're like, well, that's an industry that I really don't want to go into, except for the people that are truly passionate about it. So there is a lack of management talent in our industry. Now, I would say in Tampa, there's more talent than there was in the Pittsburgh market, and I'd say it's on par with the Charlotte market that I'm familiar with as well. So it's funny, trying to find great store-level management is the answer to that question. Now, luckily, the retention inside of CRG and specifically at Cali, we keep our people. And so we haven't
awesome.
had a lot of turnover, and I take great pride in that as well. So, but when you need to go out and look for somebody, it can be very challenging.
I can imagine. I mean, it's hard at, all levels. And I mean, with, costs going up,
Yeah.
People, transitioning either into tech or into trades. I mean, the restaurant industry is, I'm sure, definitely going through an interesting period, especially after COVID.
Sure. And it's being able to staff your kitchens here is fairly easy. And in the north, that is not the case.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very
Because
challenging.
they go get a trade job or?
Well, yeah, or post-pandemic again, when like Target, like for instance, was paying people $22 an hour to stock shelves. I mean, now we're competing with that,
That makes
because
sense.
a lot of the line cooks, yeah, it's their career, but they also are very concerned about their hourly rate. And
Of
so,
course.
and again, I think that other industries post-pandemic really moved the needle with that, and now we compete against all industries for some of those hourly employees. But here in Florida, fairly easy to staff your kitchens. In the north, it was way more challenging. But here, it's management is the opportunity.
How do you make it as, shifting gears a little bit, so talking about kind of some more intricacies, how do you, some menus are seasonal and things like that with different restaurant groups and stuff like that. How do you kind of, I guess, taste test at first, like even figure out your menu, and then, how do you keep people coming back with different items? How does that analysis kind of go, I guess?
So there's a lot of different philosophies on your menu, how your menu is broken down. Now, some concepts like the Hillstone Group that has Houston's and Bandera and they're iconic.
They got good ribs.
Excellent ribs. They rarely ever change their menu.
Mm-hmm.
Their niche is, we're going to be really consistent. Every single time that you come in, this food item is going to be exactly the same every time. So there's different schools of thoughts on it. At Cali, we have a core menu that we stick to, but we do rotate through some different items every year. And we went through a big menu evolution about a year and a half ago, where it was more of a wholesale change to our menu. We still kept our bowls, but a lot of other things, appetizers, salads, pizzas, they got changed out. Now for us, it's kind of just making subtle changes each year to keep people interested. We don't really do seasonal features, but we do change out menu items probably 2 or 3 times a year, but just like 2 or 3 items each one of those times. So most of the menu stays pretty consistent, because what you need, well, one of my philosophies is when you don't change a menu very often, everybody becomes an expert in those items, including the line cooks. If you're continuously changing out menu items, it's hard for the line cooks to be consistent with those. It's just you're retraining.
Constantly adjusting.
You're adjusting, you're retraining. And so for us, it's about having a great core menu and then slowly making changes to keep our guests interested. Things that we can put out into social media. Hey, here's this new item. Come try it out at Cali. Sometimes we'll bring back an old menu item that was a guest favorite.
Oh, that's cool.
And rotate it back through, right, to get people's attention again. So, but for me, keeping the menu consistent most of the year is kind of where I want to be as an operator. And then switch some items out just to keep it interesting.
I'm not as adventurous, once I go to somewhere and I kind of get 1 or 2 things that I like, pretty consistent. I mean, the lean and clean's my go-to, or the hot honey pizza when I'm feeling like a bad guy, with you guys. But I've been to places that, I've gone consistently to in the past, and like they have that thing, that one thing that you always get, and they take it off, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like you just killed my vibe. Like somebody had, I'm not going to mention any names because I'm friends with them, but they had these amazing like breakfast potatoes. Yeah. And they changed them to like these like potato straws. And I'm like, dude, you guys like had the magic. Like these things were amazing. Hopefully you don't know who I'm talking about.
I do not.
Then good. Yeah. But I'm like, it's like one of those things where it's, you go there and you're like expecting that. It's like, what happened? Like this was like, so definitely all about, changing up the vibe, but I'm very consistent.
So that's really challenging because no matter what you take off the menu, even if it's the lowest,
somebody's gonna be upset.
Even if it's the lowest preference, and we experienced some of this recently over the past year. Like we wanted to add a couple new menu items, but we have this discipline that we're going to keep our menu size, the same size basically all year round. So if we want to add an item, we have to take an item off. That's kind of our discipline, right? And we took some items that were pretty low sellers that we didn't think we'd hear much about, and the guests were very loud,
like roaring,
on guest reviews when we took them off. But we're very also mindful of the top selling items. We very rarely, if it's not broke, you don't touch those items. Not even small modifications to them. What we've learned at Cali is we do a lot of third-party business.
I so agree with that because everybody's like, "Oh, this is amazing. Let's make it a little better." And it's like, no,
you don't need
just don't touch it.
You don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to.
Yeah.
And
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and be good with that.
Yeah.
And it's having that discipline because a lot of restaurant people we like to play a little bit, and
of course,
and from that conceptual development standpoint,
play with your food.
Well, yeah exactly. We want to tweak and we want to make these little changes because we think we know better. And sometimes you just need to listen to your guests. Yeah. They'll tell you everything.
You mentioned social media. Obviously, everybody loves food on social media. How has that affected, your business, your brand? I mean, I'm sure it's paramount.
Well, it's funny because at Cali, we didn't do a lot of marketing prior to about 2.5 years ago. And we put, we had social media, but, we had like 10,000 page followers and we really weren't doing any sponsored
That's pretty
ads
respectable.
and it was very... kind of a cult-like following at Cali. And one thing that we've done over the past couple of years, we put like a consistent marketing plan in place. And, and a lot of it's through social media as well. We do a lot of targeted meta ads. Like for these refreshes, we wanted our guest base to know as quickly as possible, hey, we have really refreshed the interiors of our buildings. So, hey, the same great Cali food that you're accustomed to now in a nicer space. So how do you get that word out? Social media's it's the best way to do it. And so, and again, it's very cost effective from a marketing standpoint, your impressions and how many people that you're touching. And we do some influencers that come in as well. So,
very cool.
A lot of micro influencers. We're not going after, the 500,000 followers or people like that, but just people to come in, they eat at Cali and, hey, if you want to share your experience in an Instagram story or a post, we appreciate that as well. And so that helps, keep Cali fresh in people's minds. And so we've really changed our marketing perspective over the past couple of years. And I think it's really added to the success of the brand as well.
I almost, I like the idea of micro influencers, especially with a Tampa or, a local based brand in general. I almost think when, groups try to go after these, bigger influencers, you're asking for, I wouldn't say asking for trouble, but asking for trouble. I mean, can you imagine if like Mr. Beast or Logan Paul went to, you guys would be out of food in 48 hours. It's like,
exactly.
We're trying to, you guys are trying to curate, consistent business, not one-hit wonders.
Yeah,
So,
we work with a social media company, and we actually try to attract influencers that are already patrons and fans of Cali.
It's even better.
So it's organic in nature, right? And again,
this is what I've gotten here the 4 times in the last 6 months.
100%.
I love going, not, I just found this restaurant,
We just try to do everything in a very genuine way from our operations, for how we lead people, from our social media. Yeah, just, real food only is our new tagline. And I think it speaks loudly. So
absolutely. We talked about you guys, or you mentioned a couple minutes ago that you guys feel like you're ready to start expanding.
Sure.
What goes into that analysis? I mean, what metrics are you using to know that you're ready to go, get bigger?
Great question. And it's proof of concept for all the change that we've went through over the past couple of years. Again, we started with, changing our online presence, and then our to-go packaging, and then our server uniforms, and then the food menu, then the china, then the service style, now the refreshes. And so we've been working up to this point for a couple of years now. And what the beautiful thing is that everything's kind of hit and work for us. So we measure ourselves always against year-over-year sales, same-store sales, year-over-year sales. And we've seen tremendous sales growth, particularly over the past year, and then even more so over the past 6 months, where, most restaurants are flat at this point, maybe slightly up or maybe slightly down. And, not to kind of give away all of our numbers, but, we're up double digits in sales.
Incredible.
At these restaurants.
Congratulations.
And thank you. I appreciate that. And the refreshes, where I've done refreshes in the past in the Pittsburgh market, in the Charlotte market, a lot of the mentality of refreshing your buildings, you don't always assume to get a sales pop from that. You would like it, right, that you're investing those dollars and you get a sales pop from it and you can sustain
It's
that.
good business. It's not just a direct return.
100%. You got to refresh your buildings to stay relevant, right? And I did that in Pittsburgh, about every 7 to 8 years is when I would put some money back into the restaurants. Well, after these refreshes here at the Cali's in Tampa, we saw tremendous sales pops. In South Tampa, it took a little while. It took like 3-4 months for it to really gain steam. But we just refreshed Tampa Palms and we refreshed the St. Pete location, and we saw an immediate influx in sales that has sustained over the past couple months. So
you guys have been slammed for lunch. I mean, our office is, right over there. I mean, and we're in there at least once a week. I've never seen anything like it for a sit-down restaurant.
Well, so for us, we did so much third-party business, like through DoorDash, Uber Eats, takeout, and our restaurants would fill up, but not like now.
Oh, it's insane.
So basically the refreshes were to gain more dining room sales and to attract more dining room sales, and it's worked pretty quickly, a little sooner than expected in the Tampa Palms market and the St. Pete market. So we're really grateful, and the guests have just given us tremendous feedback, and so we feel like now's the time. And
I was there twice this week.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you very much.
My wife and I went, and then I got takeout yesterday. So I mean, it's easy, and I really, again, not to just totally hype you guys up, but I went on your website, super easy to navigate. Threw in my order, sat and typed out 15 more minutes worth of emails, set an alarm, walked over, grabbed it, said what up to Richard, walked back and ate lunch. I mean, it was super easy.
Well, the online, when we redid
the quality was just as good.
Yeah, when we redid our website, what do you really want your website? People want to go there to look at your menu
and
order the food. And so many people, when they design websites, there's so many bells and whistles and XYZ, and you kind of get lost.
Here's our history, and here's
you get lost in the sauce. I just want to go to the website and order some food. And so we made it as user-friendly as possible. I'm glad you felt that way.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. So how do you continue learning?
Oh boy, you learn every day in this business. And that's the one thing I think you need to be open to learning and learn from your employees and learn from your guest. How do I learn in particular? Again, I mean, I do study a lot of things going on in the industry. I like to go to other restaurants myself. And so I would typically take one R&D trip every quarter where I would just go to a different food city, kind of do some research and just go visit restaurants, to study everything from their menus to their design, just to pick up, if there's little things you can take from each place. There's not a lot of original ideas there left out in the restaurant industry.
Many. Yeah.
And so go to your competitors, learn and listen to your employees, listen to your guests. Like a lot of operators, we say we listen, but are we truly listening? Do you take that time? And so, just keep your ears and read reviews. Like we have so many online reviews as well. And you just have to read between the lines of some of these reviews. But listen to your guests, listen to your employees and study the industry and take a look at your competitors, especially the ones that are doing it well.
Absolutely. I feel like you have such a fun job because if you get to go to different cities to just try different food, then I may need to reevaluate. I'm like, that sounds absolutely amazing. I think the closest I get these days is diners, drive-ins, and dives. So.
Oh, hey, that's still that's
the vibe.
If there's nothing on TV and I see that on, I've probably seen every episode 2 or 3 times at least now. Because you can take things from these small mom and pops restaurants as well. They sometimes from a guest-facing interactions, they do it the best because again, it's coming from this genuine place of love of food and want to create a great experience. So but I love traveling around the country.
Well, you go to that place and picking random city, Memphis, Tennessee, and it's like there's 20 tables in there, and you look around and you're walking around the city and you're like, they're full every night.
Oh yeah.
Like what are they doing there? Like they, is it this or it's? I mean, and you really learn. I think I'm sure it helps with the grassroots. I mean, anybody can throw up major advertisements and commercials and things like that, but it's like you're spending money. You're either going to spend money or spend time. So what do you want to do?
Well, it's funny you said the grassroots because of the social media marketing that we do. The other 50% of our marketing plan is predominantly grassroots marketing, and that's relationship marketing. It's relationship in the local communities with businesses. I mean, we had a chamber event that did a ribbon cutting, and
that's awesome.
We were never members of the chambers at all. So getting involved, getting my leadership involved. Like I have some really talented managing partners, and I'm encouraging them to step out and be the proprietor of your restaurant and get out in the community. Again, we used to do a lot of ocean cleanups and things along those lines as well that we're going to get back into as well. So be a positive member of the community that your restaurant resides in, and again, do it in a genuine way.
I agree. I appreciate we said, or I said rather that we were talking a little bit before we got started, and I said, how do you want to be, what's your focus? Obviously, there's a lot of brands under, Ciccio Group that, CRG. So I appreciated your response when you said, my focus, I can obviously talk about all the brands to some extent, but my focus is Cali.
Absolutely.
So as you're growing different concepts and things like that, and I'm talking about, I guess, the executive view and things like that, how important is it to have figureheads like you that are like, this is your own, instead of, we have 8 different concepts and one person that thinks about it all. Yeah, I feel like that's just a recipe for disaster.
100%, because each concept's so different from one another. We have 18 Fresh Kitchens now, and that's a brand that we're truly...
You have 18 now?
18, yeah. And truly,
I remember the South Tampa one 10 years ago. We used to, however many years, we'd been eating there forever. I had no idea. And then I obviously know St. Pete, but I had no idea you had 18.
In Miami, Orlando. And so we just keep expanding the footprint, and that brand has been very successful. But again, that's a fast casual brand. Cali's full service. So they're very much different from one another. And, leadership is one thing, but you need to get down to the nitty gritty, right? Of like,
you need to be immersed.
Yeah, immersed in your particular brand. And, again, if you're 50% thinking about this brand, 50% this brand, it's kind of doing an injustice to both brands, in my opinion.
I agree.
And so we at CRG, we stay true to the brands that we're specifically involved in. Again, I wake up in the morning, first thing I'm checking sales, and I'm available on the weekends, and I'm fully immersed in the Cali brand. One, because I believe in it and I love what I do. So
that's rad.
I only have enough energy for one brand right now.
I get it.
Because I'm an all-in kind of guy. So
it's very similar to the legal profession, and you'll see other attorneys, and not talking bad about other attorneys, but you'll see somebody that they practice real estate and they do personal injury, and then they do contracts, and then they do a divorce, and it's like, my guy or my gal, what are you good at?
Yeah, are you a master of nothing then? So that's my
thing.
There's a lot of really bright, brilliant people out there, far more intelligent than me. But I know my limitations and I know where I need to be, and so I try to keep my focus on where it needs to be, you know. And again, we've invested a lot in these restaurants recently, and the goal is to sign an LOI by the end of this year for location number 5. So
That's awesome.
the growth, finally, we haven't opened a location in 8 years. And so,
Wow.
and the results now have, you know, again, Fresh Kitchen's very successful. And so if I wanted CRG to put their capital resources into another brand, we had to prove it. And we've proven it over the past couple of years.
That's got to be so. That's got to be so fulfilling.
Oh, it's 100%. You know, working with small brands and like helping them grow to a place is kind of my passion. It's what I did originally in Pittsburgh, and I could have taken bigger jobs in XYZ, but you know, this was getting me back to my roots, and I've never been more passionate.
You wanted
about
to be
my
in
job.
Tampa.
Well, Tampa was the big draw. Yeah,
No,
Tampa was the big draw. It's funny. I could have stayed at my old job in Pittsburgh and finished my career out there. I truly could have, you know. But for me, I didn't want to look back and say that I worked for one company for 40 years in the same city.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more adventurous than that, and so I finally took the leap of faith, and very happy to be in Tampa. Feels like home now.
It's crazy that I was at a birthday dinner last night and met some new people, and one of them said, I said, you know, they asked me, did you grow up in Tampa? And I said, kind of. I lived in Apollo Beach, which is a suburb and things, and then went off to college and law school, came back, etc. And I said to them, I was like, hey, you know, are you from Tampa? How long have you been here? And they're like, I'm from Ohio. And I go, oh, 'cause, you know, I moved here, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. And I said, so what made you decide to move to Tampa? And they were like, yeah, I came here for New Year's once. And I was like, this place is awesome. And then I just moved. I'm like, that's the coolest story ever.
So my ex-girlfriend's family moved to St. Pete about 8-9 years ago.
Okay.
And her and I, it was during the pandemic, and Pennsylvania was closed down during the pandemic. And we were at a family cabin by a ski resort. It was cold, like there was nothing to do. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. And so we ended up renting an Airbnb in Dunedin.
Nice.
And so
Great place.
Came down for 3 months. I bought a pedal bike.
Nice.
I was up and down the Pinellas Trail, visiting Tampa, and that's truly when I fell in love with the area, just the energy of the place. And I truly feel that people are more friendly here. Like they give you smiles when you walk by. In Pittsburgh, that's not always the case. And so this place is it's been great so far to me.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. You can pick any kind of timeline, you know, 5 years, 10 years, or however you want to answer. As far as where do you see the Cali brand going? What does that look like?
So we plan on building out a restaurant, 1 per year for the next 2 years, and then scale it 2 restaurants per year after that. Okay. And so really to try to get to 10 to 12, over the next 4 or 5 years. So I wouldn't say that we have the same growth strategy as Fresh Kitchen, which is far more aggressive. We're going to be, again, with full service. You don't want to cannibalize your restaurant. So we have a great location in Tampa Palms. Well, we're thinking about Wesley Chapel, but we know that will pull from the Tampa Palms market. So we don't think we can do as
But then
many.
you're like, do I want to go as far away as Orlando? You know what I mean? So it's like...
not at first.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but it's like, we think about it when we're growing satellite offices and stuff, and it's like, hey, we either have to have somebody run that or somebody has to be down there,
100%. And we're trying to stay lean right now. And so...
Everybody's like, go to Miami. I'm like, dude, Miami's 4 hours. I don't want to get on a plane.
So I'm one person right now for 4 locations. And if we would, say, go to Miami, right? I mean, that would be very challenging.
It's a full-time job in itself.
And so we could have a great managing partner there, but the goal is to still stay around Tampa for the next 2 locations,
That's awesome.
Very strategic, and then maybe get to Sarasota, which is, an hour and 20 minutes away?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Bad.
And that's in driving distance for me as well, because you got to strategically layer in your corporate overhead as well. And that's something that I'm responsible for too. Like, I don't want to bring in another high salary as like a director of ops or anything until I need it, essentially. And now is not that time. Location number 5 probably won't be either, maybe going into 6 or 7. So we're going to be really strategic for the next couple locations because, again, we've not opened a location for 8 years. And if number 5 isn't a smashing success, there might not be a number 6. So
of course, you got to be strategic.
We're going to be really strategic on this next location, even though we truly believe that Cali could be in 1 million neighborhoods in Florida. It's the price points, I think, are approachable. And,
Of course.
And that's price value is a big thing for consumers, especially today. And so there's a lot of markets that we think will work for us, for sure.
I definitely agree with you. And a lot of places that are expanding like crazy. I mean, if you look at, God, what was the one that was Parrish down in like Ellington area and stuff like that, like a little bit north of Bradenton. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that, but it's like Florida is just expanding so much. And, you know, Wesley Chapel, you guys would do really well in Wesley Chapel. I understand it would pull. But a lot of those people are pretty like, it's weird how Pasco works and that like North Tampa, like they're pretty loyal to their 5-mile radius.
Yeah, we got a nice little write-up from Wesley Chapel Local. They came
That's
down
awesome.
for our opening event at the Tampa Palms location, and it's amazing how many people come down there. But to your point, it's such a big market.
Yeah, because Tampa Palms is exit 270, right?
Yes.
And then, Wesley Chapel, you would be like 70, exit 275 to 279.
It's a good 25 minutes away.
Oh, yeah, it's a track.
30 minutes away. Yeah. And so for me, you know, I'm not very often driving restaurants that are a half hour away personally. So I think we do well at that market. Lutz we're looking at. It's funny, Apollo Beach, we had a site that we were just recently looking at.
Grew up there,
And so there's a lot of markets that we're now looking at. We just hired.
Apollo Beach isn't bad. You do better in Riverview.
Yeah.
But don't go by me again. I'm not the expert. But
so
there's nobody that knows the 75 and 19 corridor and 275. I'm like, these three counties are like, they're mine. Like,
well, we just made a major hire on the CRG side, on Fresh Kitchen side. We hired a director of real estate for us. And he helped build out First Watch, which was one of the fastest growing brands.
Well aware.
And so we've made some pretty impressive hires at CRG recently to both take Fresh Kitchen forward and Cali forward in the future. So pretty excited about
Apollo Beach, is a good market, and it's definitely gotten a lot younger and things.
We just look at we don't know if it has the density. That's where that's probably down a few notches on our wish list at this point.
That whole like Sun City, Waimama, Ruskin, Apollo Beach, it's actually still very spread out, even though that they call it South Shore.
Yeah.
But like you said, it doesn't have that density. I think once they finish that Riverview 301, where they just basically fill it up all the way to the middle school, high school there, then it'll start moving more south. But anyway, I bored you guys with Tampa real estate.
Real estate talk.
So if you could give, and it doesn't even have to be one, but if you could give one piece of advice for building a brand, what would you give, or what would you say? Say, I came to you and said, and we can even use restaurants, for example, and say, hey, listen, I want to build the next great Tampa-based restaurant brand. What would you suggest?
Start with hiring great people. I know that seems like such a basic answer, and that probably applies to so many different industries.
A team. Yeah.
You have to have great people. And, we serve food and we're a food company, but it's people first for me always. And so attracting the right type of leaders is where you need to start always. And so again, like I said earlier, you can have an average concept and great people, and you can be very successful. And so you got to start with people. And again, that's the challenge in our industry, is finding great people right now. And so finding that core group of people that you can trust and build with is step number one.
I don't blame you. I mean, I would say that even as hard as I work and the hustle that I have, I mean, the team that I have around me is second to none. And it's allowed me to, I now have a vision, and my goals have changed because I'm like, wow, I have these people that can help me build this. Like, I think I'm capable of more than I ever thought.
And it's like, that just makes it more fulfilling too.
It's amazing.
Especially
and to be able to build them up and take them along with the ride.
Well, that's what it's all about for me too. It's about developing people and seeing them be successful. And, I was kind of, I was the first kid in my family to go to college. I was kind of an underdog, know, and I had a couple people that gave me opportunities, and I like to pay that forward in the future, find those underdog stories and help develop and lead them. And seeing so many of those people become successful is very fulfilling for me. So
I love talking to those young people that go, I call them little rabbits that go, and maybe that's derogatory, but that are like going a million miles an hour and they're like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm like, I love your passion. Keep that. Now let's figure out how to organize that.
Well,
and let's point you in a direction and let's send you into the stratosphere.
And that was me in my 20s.
I mean, I think any hyper successful person, it's like, man, this guy's a lot.
I was like this and that. And I've been told that a million times.
Me too.
Whether from employees or significant others, I can be a lot sometimes.
Does he stop working?
It's hard for me to dial back the passion and the energy.
Of course.
It's just again, that's what I lean into as much as possible. And I think as you develop as a leader throughout the years, you lean into yourself a lot more, and you don't try to be somebody else, and you understand what your
You
strengths
figure
and
out your own
weaknesses
style.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then surround yourself with people that complement you, and not people that are all exactly think the way that you do. And so like I know the areas that I'm strong in, and I know the areas that I'm deficient in. And so those areas that I'm more deficient in, I'm going to bring great people in to help me in that particular area. So it's about the team. It truly is.
I want to unpack that real quick because I think that's really important to say, and doing a lot of reading on this as far as leadership and hiring a team and things like that. A lot of people, and I've seen this, and I don't exactly agree with in the fact of they're like, you have to have people around you that challenge you. And I think you have to have people that are willing to push back, but ultimately respect you and the decision that you make. And I think that people fail to unpack that. I don't want to be fighting with people that I work with all day.
There's
because
a huge difference.
I think they're really, and I think a lot of the literature out there really misses that. And it's about complimenting you and pushing back, when it needs to be. But at the end of the day, you're the arbiter, you're the decision maker. So I think there's a fine line between somebody challenging you and somebody working with you.
Well, I think that the people that are challenging for the sake of challenging.
Correct.
And there's a lot of people that are out there that do that, right? But are they trying to add value, and is it coming from the right place? And I don't mind being challenged if it's coming from the right place, but I also know when somebody's challenging just for the sake of challenging, and that's not productive ultimately.
Of course.
And so like as a leader, I just feel is your door truly open? What I mean by that is that can people approach you about anything? That's how I want to be as a leader, right? I want to hear all the feedback. I want to hear the critical feedback. I want to hear the positive, and are you a leader that is truly open to receive that? I think a lot of leaders think that they are, but ask the employees that same question, and that's what I challenge all my managing partners to. It's like, is everybody truly coming to you with everything, and often they say yes, and the answer is absolutely no. So
they think, or maybe they want to believe rather.
Yeah, when you're closed off, you miss out on potential, lessons and learnings, and if you only want to hear what you want to hear, you're not going to move forward.
For me too, it's always, and I kind of got this from you as we were talking, is being in the trenches with people.
Oh yeah.
I think so much, and I don't know if it really goes along with being a servant leader, but it's like, when we had first met, you were just, sitting at the bar in the restaurant, working with your team and things like that. And just like, that was kind of your office. You could have been, I'm sure, at your headquarters or your home office or whatever. And I think that's so important, even as you scale, for a leader to still be very visible and very accessible.
Well, especially in the restaurant industry. I mean, you have to be inside of your building to understand what's going on. Like I've never understood, directors or VPs that are sitting in an office all day. And I understand you have a certain amount of administrative work that needs to be done, and you need that quiet space. And trust me, in the restaurant, you're not really getting quiet space. But like to me, I'm in the restaurants almost every single day.
Yeah.
And so maybe I take one admin day where I go to our headquarters at the Urban Center and work for a full day once every 2 weeks, but every single day I'm inside of our restaurants. Now it's not for a 9-hour shift.
Of course.
But if I'm there for 3-4 hours, I'm going to be able to see what I need to see at the time, whether it's during, lunch rush or dinner rush. So,
awesome.
But you have to be able to touch the business, whatever business that you're operating.
100%. 100%. Well, as we wrap up, we always ask the same question at the end of every episode. I've already shared it with David, and he said he's got the answer. So with that being said, at the end of your story, when the music stops, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, it's funny. It comes back to how you impact people. And so I want to be remembered as somebody that purposely impacted other people's lives in a positive way, other leaders inside of the restaurant, Again, I have a lot of people from my old company that still just call me for advice and to lean on me. And so I've promoted so many.
That's awesome.
I've promoted servers to managers that are now directors, and, people out of marketing school that, hey, I do some freelance marketing. Give me a shot doing this inside the restaurant. I give them shots. And that one girl that I gave that shot to ended up running all of our marketing for my last company. And now she moved on and she's making probably way more money than me. And so it's just seeing the positive impact that you can create in people from a leadership perspective. It's not about me. It's about the people that I impact.
It's incredible.
Yeah, because I don't have any kids.
Oh,
and
gosh,
so for
yeah.
me, I have no
You
kids.
got
It's
all
like,
these chitlins now.
what
Yeah.
positive impact can I create in the world? And for me, it's through my work. It truly is.
That's great.
And so, and that's the amazing thing about the restaurant industry. We spoke about it earlier. You have the opportunity to touch so many people, whether it's employees or the guests that come through your door.
Wonderful. Well, make sure that you guys check out the Cali brand. It is one of my favorite spots. Like I said, I eat there probably once a week. They got locations in South Tampa, St. Pete, New Tampa, and where's the fourth?
Oh, the South Tampa location. Did you say that one?
I think is there
South Tampa, Riverview, St. Pete, and Tampa Palms.
Okay, perfect. South Tampa, Riverview, St. Pete, and Tampa Palms. I'm obviously going to put their website down in the description. So very easy to order some takeout. Either stop by there or grab a meal. And as we always say, I mean, like and subscribe. And it is not an accident that David, as successful as he is, that's a mouthful there, but I appreciate you, my man.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Great time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
We will see you guys soon. Check out Cali.